What the heck is this thing? Well, it looks like one leg of a tripod, and that's kind of what it is. I'm going to talk all about monopods on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions right here on Adorama TV. If you've got a photo question, you know what to do. You just go to askdavidbergman.com, submit that form on the site. I just might pick your question to answer right here on a future show. Today's question was sent in by Martin, and he wants to know, "Hi David, I'd like to take pictures of birds in flight, flowers, and landscapes. I'll be taking them from a moving boat. I have image stabilization on my camera, but should I also use a monopod?" Martin, thanks so much for sending that in. Now, before I answer your specific question, let's talk about monopods, why you'd use one, and when you might be better off leaving it at home. Now, first, let's define what a monopod is. Essentially, it's one leg of a tripod. Tri means three, and mono means one. So a monopod is a single-legged support for your camera. Now, these are generally going to be small, light, and easy to transport. Just like a tripod's legs, the monopod can be extended and retracted. Now, that makes it super easy to pack and travel with, but some can open up as tall as 6 feet or more. They do have different numbers of sections and different minimum and maximum heights, depending on which model that you buy. Now, you can also choose the material that they're made of. Good ones generally come in either aluminum, which is heavier but less expensive, or carbon fiber, which is lighter and costs more. Now, while they don't stand up on their own like a tripod does, monopods do give you more flexibility to move around really fast if you need to. Now, you might have seen photographers at sporting events using those big monster lenses like this one right here. This is the Canon 200-400 f4. It's got a built-in 1.4 teleconverter. Now, very often, these lenses are going to be held up by a monopod, and there are two primary reasons for this. First, it's going to add stability. When shooting telephoto lenses at focal lengths like 300 millimeters or more, every little movement is going to be amplified. A monopod helps you to keep the camera steady, lessening the chance of motion blur in your images. This is crucial when you're using long lenses to capture distant subjects like, for example, birds in flight. Also, in low light situations, a monopod can help you keep your camera steady at slower shutter speeds. Of course, this will work with your camera's image stabilization to get even better results. Now, the second reason to use a monopod with a lens like this is pretty much straightforward. These lenses are really heavy. I don't care how strong you think you are, you're not going to hand hold this sucker for a bird watching session or an entire football game. It's not going to happen. Now, if you just attach a monopod, it's going to hold all of the weight. So you put this right on here like so, and then this is going to allow you to shoot for longer periods of time without tiring out. Now, I'd say that you don't need it for something like, let's say, a 70-200. It's kind of a smaller lens that might weigh about 3 pounds. But when you start getting into something like the Canon 100-300 2.8, or especially this 200-400 f4, that 100-300 2.8 weighs about 5.5 pounds. I used one handheld for an entire 2-hour concert, and I was absolutely wishing I had a monopod by the end of the night. Now, sidebar, when you're using a heavy lens like this, attach the monopod to the lens instead of to the body. Most big lenses like this have a tripod collar, so you should use that as your attachment point. If the monopod is all the way at one end and attached up here at the body, you're going to have a lot of weight hanging off to the side when this is up here like this. And that's not going to be stable. It's going to be unbalanced. It's just going to be unsafe and difficult to hold. So always attach it to the lens tripod collar. And this also is going to allow you to quickly and easily switch from horizontal to vertical shooting. So all you have to do is loosen this little button right here, and you can switch very easily to shoot vertical. Super easy when you're on a monopod and you're attached to the lens. You just spin the camera around and put it where you want. Now, to carry this thing, let's put it back in position. To carry this, it's best to put it over your shoulder, like so that the corner lays right here, right in that little nook right there. What this is going to do, this balances out the weight and really makes it easy to carry. Now, when you pick it up, make sure you don't do what I'm doing right now. You always want to pick it up by this tripod collar, and don't just use the monopod to pick it up. This monopod is attached to the lens right here only by a single little screw, and that's a potential point of failure. You always want to grab by the collar to be safe. Don't pick it up like this. Pick it up here and sling it over your shoulder. Also, a pet peeve of mine, please, 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 I'm begging you. Here, I got to show you this. Always carry the lens so it's facing down like this. it absolutely makes me insane when I see people, photographers, walking around like this on the sidelines of a football game or anywhere. That drives me insane. Besides the fact that it's more balanced and comfortable to hold it this way, it's way too easy for something to fall in there and scratch that big piece of glass when you've got it pointed up and open to the whole world. Let me get this out of the way now. It's a little unwieldy here in the studio. But that's how you carry that thing. Now, when would you not use a monopod? Well, somewhere along the way, I think new photographers were told that they should always use a monopod when they're shooting sports or to just freeze motion of any kind. That is simply not true. Most of the time, you're shooting sports at fast shutter speeds, like 1,000th of a second or more. At those speeds, you can absolutely handhold a lens without getting any motion blur. So if you're using a smaller lens to shoot sports, you probably don't need a monopod. The only time I could see using a wide-angle lens on a monopod would be to get like a high-angle shot when you're trying to shoot over a crowd, for example. You can set your timer or use a cable release or a radio remote to trigger that camera and just get it up way high if you need to. And by the way, in a case like that where you're shooting at an extreme angle, you could take something like this, a ball head, and you could put this on the end of the monopod so that you can get those angles. This is a 3-pod ball head. I'll put links to all this stuff down in the description below. Now, I wouldn't use a ball head with a heavier lens though, like that one, because it might not support the weight and it's gonna tip over. And one more tip, by the way, if you don't need to extend your monopod all the way, what you wanna do is collapse the thin sections first, the ones at the bottom, so that you only have the stronger, thicker sections open for more support. Now, when I used to shoot for Sports Illustrated, I had a few different monopods and I used them at almost every assignment. Gitzo was the gold standard back then, and they still make really solid high-end gear. The one that I just showed you, that's an older model, but there are new ones now, like the GM4552L. That one weighs only 1.6 pounds. It has 5 sections, opens up to just over 6 feet, and can hold up to 77 pounds of gear. Of course, you're going to pay for that quality. That costs just under $500, but it's a worthwhile investment that you'll have forever, like I still have mine. Now, if you don't need a monopod quite that heavy duty, 3-pod also makes an aluminum one that weighs about 2.2 pounds. It has 4 sections, opens up to just under 5.5 feet, and holds up to 18 pounds. You can find that at Adorama anywhere from $60 to $75 depending on sales. Of course, like I said, I'll put links to all this stuff. Now, Martin, to answer your specific question, on a moving boat, you kind of threw me for a loop on that one, I honestly think you'll be better off shooting handheld. You'll be bouncing around in the water, and if the monopod is touching the floor of the boat, then your camera is going to be bobbing up and down with you. It's also going to pick up all of the vibration from the engine, which could give you some serious motion blur. Now, if you just hold the camera yourself, your body can act like a bit of a shock absorber so that you don't have as much motion. Unless you're shooting with a very heavy lens that you can't handhold for very long, I'd say ditch the monopod, make sure image stabilization is on, and shoot away. Once you're back on dry land, however, then yes, a monopod can be a big help, especially with long lens photography of birds in flight. Also, it can double as a walking stick when you're out hiking. It's kind of a bonus. For flowers and landscapes, you might consider a tripod where you can just put the camera in one spot and not move at all. So what do you all think? Do you have experience using a monopod for your photography? What do you use it for? Let me know down in the comments below. Remember, if you've got your own photo questions, just head over to askdavidbergman.com and ask away. If you enjoyed this video, I appreciate you hitting that like button, subscribe to the Adorama YouTube channel, and ring that little bell icon to get notified about new videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back next time with a brand new question right here on Ask David Bergman.